I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So the proposition speaks a beautiful framing, a world where every citizen finds themselves in a textbook. But in the fragile reality of a post-conflict state where institutions are crumbling and the threat of renewed violence is high, this approach is not just idealistic but quietly dangerous. Based on the proposition's arguments, bottom-up history textbooks, healing fractured nations, validating commons and producing good political discourse. But I stand here as opposition's representative to tell you and clear up some points. So firstly, post-conflict states are not a stable institution. They are places where people have just finished having violence and fights against each other, where trauma is fresh and where trust is destroyed. The proposition wants to hand these fragile states to the most complex and most contested version of history possible. So this possibly will heal the nation, like they said, but actually in the past conflict states, people don't look to textbooks to see a mirror of their current suffering, but instead they look for a vision of where they become, and we focus only at the bottom-up experience specifically. If we focus only on the bottom-up experience specifically, we aren't creating a peace, but instead we codify griefs of one group against another. And if these bottom-up textbooks being passed down to the young generations, it leads their view to only minding specific social groups or class, leading them to be an identity votes. So based on the setup, we want to give you reasons why top-down history is better and not less important. So the top-down history provides symbols of authority that fractured publics can collectively respect instead of decentralized history to everyone's story, because if it's represented as everyone's story, you possibly get thousands of competing narratives that remind people of why they fought each other in the first place, instead of being a unity. But with the top-down history approach, we actually teaches the importance of institution, which is the only thing that actually stops democratic backsliding. So according to our defined setups, I'm now moving on to my arguments. First, top-down historiography is the only effective tool for rapid national integration in fractured states. The reason is because post-conflict states actually suffer from memory wars. If the textbook focuses on bottom-up approach, it inevitably highlights the horizontal conflicts between neighbors and village where one neighbor fights against and killed another's family. Consider any nation's building project after colonialism. If their focus remained on the thousands of different tribal or local perspectives, the states would have remained fragmented. But by focusing on a figure like founding fathers or a central revolutionary government, diverse populations were given to a singular identity to rely under, providing the stability needed for the quality of the states and people. And at that moment, status quo, in the post-conflict states, ordinary people are not a unified group. In a civil war, ordinary people fought on opposite sides. One village hero is another village war criminal. And therefore, we strongly believe with the top-down historiography, it will prioritize the survival of the states over the diverse identities of people. It provides the peace necessary for any history to be fought. And my second argument is that the top-down historiography provides the necessary moral clarity and example required for civic education. The reason is children and students in post-conflict states need points of orientation. Bottom-up historiography is, as proposition's own admission, is a complex and multidisciplinary world that is good for academics, But actually, if you tell a child that history is just a series of past development and sociological transactions, you push history constantly of its moral weight. Top-down history uses great men or women as main values of courage, sacrifice, and diplomacy. In a state recovering from regime change, you need the public to believe that leadership matters. If we teach that leaders are just one link in the chain, we made a generation who don't believe in the power of political change. Instead, top-down history is more effective because it is aspirational. Gives the youth a sense of national greatness to strive for, rather than collective capability to drown in. Let me summarize what we have established today. We have shown you with the bottom-up historiography, it is too complex for school children and divides rather than unites. Also, textbooks clearly cannot validate millions of individuals, and validation without accountability is propaganda. The government offers a world where history is a gentle, complex web of ordinary lives. That world is actually confusing change, but in a post-conflict state, raw from violence, hungry for justice, needing to be rebuilt, what children need is not 1,000 personal stories. They need to know who was responsible, what the system was, and how to prevent it from happening again. And that is top-down history. That is clear and that is actionable. A textbook is not a memorial, and the classroom is not a truth of commissions. Let us not confuse them. To ensure that never again remains a reality, we must prioritize the narrative of the state, the authority of the law, and the symbols of national unity. We win this debate. Thank you.